Hi, my name is Erica, and I'm the secretary of the GG STEM Foundation, and I'm also joined by Rebecca, who is the vice president of the foundation. In this video, we are going to interview Sahana Vandayar, one of our previous scholarship winners. Now, Sahana's done some amazing things to increase diversity in the STEM fields, but I'll let her talk about that for herself. Sahana, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Erica. My name is Sahana Vandayar. I'm currently a sophomore at Northwestern studying computer science and business, but also a proud former member of FRC team 2526 Crimson Robotics out of Maple Grove, Minnesota. And so really why I loved STEM so much and came up with that introduction is because of robotics. So I'm just super excited to be here and be joined by former robotics alum as well.
So what got you interested in robotics and STEM in the first place?
Yeah, so for me, I think why I was interested in STEM and with STEM science in the first place was really the element of teamwork that came up with it. And so for me, I remember it was actually like a Girl Scout brownie meeting back in like third grade. And we had done with a classic pour baking soda and vinegar to make a balloon float up. I feel like a lot of kids do that science experiment. But what I really liked about it is that I had no idea how people had really come up with those two chemicals coming together to make that reaction. And so for me, that kind of jump started this idea, this curiosity of how did people figure it out in the first place, that you put these things two together to get a new result. And so as my time went through in middle school and even the start of high school, just like a lot of other students, I was just exploring what I liked until I eventually rolled upon the high school robotics team at Maple Grove. And so for me, why I was so attracted to the team in the first place was because teamwork was so emphasized. I'm a people person. I love working with people. And the number one thing that they recognized in robotics there at that program was, granted, we're building a robot, but this doesn't happen without all these different people and all these different moving parts. And so in the end of it, when I graduated my senior year, my primary position where I was working on the team wasn't even really related to the robot, but more so the strategy on the field, if you're familiar with FIRST Robotics, or even the outreach that went into it. And so for me, again, I loved that experience so much when it came down to it because of the people and because of the experiences that came up as a team.
Yeah, it's amazing. Could you talk a little bit more about some of the efforts you've done to increase diversity in the STEM fields?
Yeah, definitely. So at the start of my sophomore year, our head coach from Crimson Robotics had unfortunately had to take a step of leave, and he was the primary forefront of all our outreach efforts at the time. And so I remembered at that point, we had kind of lost our head coach, and our outreach captain at the time was also balancing the positions of other members because we had lost some people. And so I was kind of provided this opportunity to help rebuild outreach and help grow it at that point. And so I knew straight away I ended up mentoring a FLL junior team, a First Lego League junior team out in a community. And a lot of those students didn't really have access to STEM opportunities outside of the program that 2526 was putting on and outside of school. And so I quickly realized from that point that as a Crimson Robotics team and as a high school community, we really had the resources and the opportunity, and most importantly, the passion and the care to really put out more resources for students. So eventually they could possibly pursue also joining a FIRST Robotics team or joining robotics or pursuing STEM in whatever shape that would take. And so for me, how that kind of started out was really targeting communities near me. And there we started out with just introducing FIRST Robotics teams for younger students. So, the classic FLL and the classic FLL junior teams. But then eventually grew beyond our own communities. So I had really great opportunity when we went to the Iowa regional competition my junior year, and there were Brazilian teams and Turkish teams there. And I think that was so cool about FIRST Robotics is you get people from all over the world in the middle of nowhere in Iowa for a competition. But there we were able to meet teams that were also doing similar efforts in their own community. And so I ended up reaching out to team 1156 Under Control out of Novo Hamburgo, Brazil. And there we were able to put together a trilingual guide with the help of another FLL team in Uruguay, and Spanish, Portuguese, and of course English, to therefore actually encourage more FLL teams to come together. And so that resulted in an additional 40 teams coming to get together between the three of our communities. And another opportunity that we were able to put together was down in Singapore on the eastern side of the world. We were able to implement an FLO junior program. So in its first year, started out as just one team and then grew to 6 or 5 and then 6 in the following years. And so being able to do those really cool global projects was all thanks to First Robotics and the community that I had on my team, because everyone was so supportive and really held that idea of creating robotics to be an opportunity and not just a competitive team aspect. And I think that's really why it was such a big and integral part of my high school time and even beyond now.
Sorry, that is so awesome. Okay, so how do you embody the ideals of the GG STEM Foundation?
Definitely. So the reason that I even applied to the scholarship in the first place is because I remember seeing you guys around competitions or seeing you online, because we're not too far in age either. So we kind of competed in similar standpoints and in similar timeframes. And so I remember seeing this and really being just so amazed by the fact that there were girls close to my age or a little bit older that were doing something so great to really encourage opportunities like this, not just for women in STEM, but to really bring diverse voices in STEM. And so for me, that was the immediate kind of flag, of the green flag of this is a community that I want to be a part of. And so really what it came down to is being able to be supported and be a part of a community that also really wanted to bring STEM to a wider audience that was already in, and that STEM became an opportunity that was more available to a wider community.
Yeah, awesome. Now, who is someone in any of the STEM fields that you admire or look up to?
Definitely, that's a good question. I feel like there's always a lot of answers to this. I mean, I've had really great professors, friends, even peers and teachers, but I remember hearing about Katherine Johnson around my freshman or sophomore year of high school, right around the time that our outreach department was kind of going through that transition on 25-26. And Katherine Johnson was a NASA mathematician who was so integral to really where NASA is today and bringing them up. And so as a Black woman, she faced a lot of discrimination, evidently, but really pursued, and her name's known today worldwide because of her work and just because of the quality of the kind of engineer and mathematician that she was. And so for me, the reason that I looked up to her so much is because, everyone goes through challenges and everyone goes through failure. But I kind of think about the fact that she was able to persevere even under those circumstances and was able to create a name for herself, not just because she was strong, but because the quality of what she was doing was right. And so for me, it really became an element of no one thought she was special because of her circumstances, because she was just in that situation, but more so because she was such a great engineer and mathematician and persevered through the circumstances that she was in. So she wasn't defined by her circumstances, but instead by her work. And so Katherine Johnson is a classic whenever I hear about role models or anything. She's definitely my forefront for that.
That is amazing. Yeah, she's such a great role model.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I think that's gonna be our last question, but what are your plans for the future, just professionally with college, outreach, anything like that? Just tell us about that.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll bring it back a little bit to give a little bit of background, but in my sophomore year, we were also able to implement this through Crimson Robotics, but started a computer science program called Computer Science for Kids, oriented towards elementary students. And so to really put this into a short sentence, it was really just a 4-day camp where students were able to learn basic skills like programming. They learned how to manage their Google Slides and Google Docs presentations on the Google Cloud and whatnot. And also were able to build up their presentation skills. And so that program we were able to implement both in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota with Crimson Robotics, and then also in Singapore with a Singaporean federal nonprofit called Cinda. And so with that experience, unfortunately, because of COVID, that was kind of cut short after we were able to train students for the first year. And so following now into college, I'm using Northwestern's incubator for startups called The Garage. And through that environment, we're actually rebranding Computer Science for Kids into a new program called Tangent Tech Ed. And so the idea is they're a similar structure and a similar program, but again, hoping to really widen that audience and widen that reach into the Chicago area and beyond. And so at this point, also really trying to hit on the same concepts that I tried to back in high school, really orientating these programs towards students who could use this as a resource for their future, and as a resource they otherwise wouldn't have. And so as far as professional ideals go and professional aspirations, definitely want to use my CS degree to the best of my abilities. I'm also doing a little bit of business with my studies, and so really hope to pursue something that is very people-based, as well as a requirement of tech skills. So, the options are endless and things change so quickly. So we'll see, in 3 years' time, but definitely anything that I've wanted to do has come as a result of robotics. So very thankful for that.
Yeah, very cool. So are there any last words or thoughts that you might have?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, I'm just really thankful that I was able to meet you all. I think it's so cool what you guys are doing. And it's also really empowering to be a part of a community, again, like first alumni who really just want to build each other up, and set each other up for success in the future going on. And are really trying to pay homage to the program that did us so much. I know First Robotics for me, I say, was the best decision I've ever made in my life, frankly, until this point. And so being able to still hold some homage to it and still hold a connection to the community is something that I'm really thankful for through this.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for joining us and telling us more about yourself and the amazing accomplishments you have. We wish you all the best in the future, and yeah, just thank you.